Hello everyone, and welcome to our episode of Exploring the Mental Health Challenges Faced by AAPI Artists in Contemporary Hollywood. I'm your host, Phan, and we're so thrilled to have you here today. This episode is made possible by AAMI in partnership with Asian Media Network. AAMI stands for AAPI Artists for Mental Illness, a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Los Angeles, California. As CEO and founder of AAMI, I am proud to say that my organization aims to promote mental wellness with the AAPI community through the arts. Through our work, we aim to challenge the stigma and silence surrounding mental health issues in the AAPI community and to provide resources and support for those who are struggling. We believe that by empowering artists to share their stories and perspective on mental health, we can create a more inclusive and compassionate society that values mental wellness for all. Before we dive deeper into our discussion, we would like to extend a special thank you for our sponsor, Synergy Health BH. Their beautiful studios located in Beverly Hills, California, provides the perfect setting for our conversation today. Synergy Health BH specializes in empowering recovery for those struggling with substance abuse and other behaviors that hinders personal growth. Their unique approach includes 12 months of ongoing monitoring, offering the best chance for long-term recovery. So Christy-Anne, welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here with you and to be able to dive into so many topics.
Yes. So I can't help but notice about your crown and your sash. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh my gosh, of course. I just recently won the Ms. Universe Petite title. This has been a very big goal for myself since I was a kid, just watching Miss Universe and, going through my pageantry journey. I jumped into this a lot later in life, so I knew the next big thing for me was gonna be winning a Ms. Universe title, and I'm just so happy and proud and to be able to say that I was able to acquire this, but it took a very, very long time and a lot of hard work.
Well, congratulations again. We are so happy to have you, and we've been friends for quite some time now, so it's so amazing to just have you sitting here and having this conversation with you. So for the viewers, can you tell them a little bit about your background, where you came from, how did you start with pageant?
Of course. Well, I am a Southern California native. I am a Filipino American, so I was born here in Southern California in the Torrance area, South Bay area. Big Filipino population, so it was nice to be surrounded by a lot of people who look like me in a huge Filipino community. I am one of 4 siblings total, hopped all over Southern California. But always proud to say that my roots are here. I'm currently based in Las Vegas, and as far as my career goes, I've been all over the map, but I'm very proud to say that right now I am in television production. So I'm a story producer doing true crime documentary series. I'm also a director and executive producer for the Regency West Coast pageant, which is an all-age pageant with 11 different divisions, very inclusive, and we really represent a lot of diversity, as well as the CEO for Studio Sash Pageant Consulting. So I've been able to take this journey as a pageant title holder and be able to mentor other women and young girls as well. And then I still continue to work with Hyundai as a spokesperson and take on as many gigs as I can as a host. Next week I'll be hosting a women's empowerment event. So, I just do my best to maintain a very rewarding career in a lot of different things that I do.
Wow, do you have an extensive resume? Oh my God, it's like a mouthful. So can you tell me, how did you start working with the Regency International West Coast pageant, and tell me how do you work with little girls? What made you start that?
Of course. So I won the 2017 Ms. Regency International title. That was my first international title. I went into the competition representing as Miss California. And I believe I was the very first Asian Ms. International Queen. So that was a very big deal for me. At the time of the pageant, there wasn't a California preliminary state pageant. So I told the judges when I interviewed for the title that if I were to win this title, I would love the opportunity to expand this brand of Regency and to become the director, because more girls need to know about this pageant system. I loved everything about it. I loved everything about my experience. It was so positive. There was so much representation. And again, to be able to step on that stage representing my culture on an international level was huge. So I wanted to create that opportunity for more girls. And now today I'm very happy and proud to say that my pageant has grown from just California Regency International to representing California, Nevada, West Coast, and Pacific Coast. So my baby has grown. So I've seen all my girls really do amazing things.
You sound so busy. You sound so busy. How are you able to juggle all of this? And being able to come on here today, like, did you have to move a lot of things around?
I didn't. This was really one of my more quiet weekends. I try my best to give myself one weekend in the month where I can just relax and have no plans. So this was perfect. And when it comes to juggling and priorities and time management, it all comes down to where do you want to serve your energy? And something for this is that I'm so passionate about, and to be able to share my story or to be able to inspire others by sharing my story, why not be here, And again, my family's still here in Southern California, so I'll probably make sure to see my mom and stop by. And so I do my best to really make things count.
Well, thank you so much. And so our staff put together these questions for you about mental health, and I think the title is so fitting and so elegant, just like you. A title for this episode is obviously Beyond the Crown, AAPI Beauty Queen, Destigmatizing Mental Health. So for the first question I have for you is, obviously you shared your personal experience of entering the world of pageantry, but how has that influenced your perspective on mental health?
Well, I'll give you my backstory as to how I really jumped into the pageantry world, the world of pageantry. Well, first of all, I did my first pageant when I was 21 years old. The Miss Fullerton America pageant, the Miss America organization, is the one where you try to win scholarship money. So that was my very first pageant. And I genuinely wanted to win scholarship money because I wanted to go into the grad program at USC. My very first time, I learned, wow, I've never really done something for myself. To be able to compete in a pageant, I don't think that people realize you're on that stage alone. You don't have a team with you. You don't have a lot of support. It is you in front of the judges, in front of a crowd of people. And, it's a very vulnerable thing, and it's a very bold thing to do. So that was one of the first times that I had really committed to something and to really go after a goal. Did I continue with pageantry after that? No, because I went right into, my career in the industry, and I'm very proud about that. So when I really fell into pageantry or got bit by the pageant bug, as a lot of pageant girls say, I actually was in my late 20s and I was going through a divorce. So I was in a very dark period of my life. I was going through a very messy divorce where I was depressed. I was very depressed in a lot of different ways. And I had a really good friend who decided to compete. And so I was helping her. I was kind of coaching her through it just because of my experience. And she was like, you should do this with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, absolutely not. I was like, I am not in the right place. My mental health is the lowest it's ever been. I do not deserve to even be on a stage right now. So fast forward to, she surprised me with the registration. She's like, hey, I really think that you should do this. And our boss at the time was like, he wants to sponsor a dress for you. So it was a beautiful, Cinderella moment where I was like, I don't even want this. I didn't ask for this, but whenever I tell that story, I still have a wave of emotion and gratitude, because if it wasn't for them, I would not be where I am today. And so I revert to a full circle moment where doing that pageant, I ended up winning first runner-up. And like I said, I did not feel prepared for this. I did not feel prepared to tell somebody my story, but I was put in a place where it was like, it is time to face your biggest fears right now. And after that experience, I was taken aback and I was like, wow, for the first time again, since everything that I've gone through, I felt like I was worth something. And if you've ever been in an abusive situation, as a domestic violence survivor, it's a really scary place to be able to go back into the world that you thought you were so comfortable in, and it just life changes, So pageantry, I'm so thankful for bringing me back my spirit, my self-worth, and a place to be myself again.
Oh, Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I know you're a little emotional right now.
Like, ooh. And because you're my friend, so it's like it feels different.
I know. And I wanted to make sure that the first runner-up, what year was that when you won that? What year?
That was 2016.
So okay, is it safe to say that you're addicted to pageantry now?
Oh, yes, girl. And so since then, I held a title every single year. So I went from winning, I did that first runner-up, and I was like, hey, I was close enough. Why don't I actually go for it? Because I saw the growth that it gave me. And so I started to challenge myself. I was like, let me see what I can actually do with this. And then the next pageant I won. So I was able to become Miss South Bay 2016. And then the following year was when I won Miss Regency International 2017. After giving up that title, I wanted to represent my culture because I realized not only in the pageantry industry, but I think in the entertainment industry, it became about representation for me. So I went on to represent as Miss Philippines World at the Miss World competition. And so I've been, going at this back to back until literally this moment and this title sitting here with you.
Amazing, absolutely. And it's very amazing because I wanted to ask you, how supportive were your family and friends? Because I'm sure they have to travel with you, all the events that you're going to.
I'm very lucky to say that they were very supportive. I think because of that time in my life and because it was a very vulnerable time for me, I think for the first time in a very long time, I felt like people were actually behind me. And when it comes to mental health, a very big part of mental health and not being in a good place is feeling very alone. So as I was continuing my pageantry journey and seeing how much support and how much family and loved ones and friends were coming out to support me, it meant the world.
Oh, thank you, and for sharing that. And in your experience, what are some common misconceptions or stigmas about mental health that you have encountered, especially within the AAPI community and also pageant world?
I think defining mental health is really tough because it comes down to the individual. We do not know each other's stories. We don't know each other's histories. We don't know each other's upbringings. And so the stigma behind mental health and people, coming to terms of where they are with their mental health, it really isn't up to anybody else to judge. And that's the hardest part about it is, somebody will come to me and say, oh my gosh, I'm depressed. And somebody else will be like, well, how are you depressed? You have this, and this, and that. It doesn't come down to factors. It comes down to the individual. And I think that from my experience, when I was in a very depressed state, it's hard to tell when you don't know the signs of depression. And I think that we just have to take it upon ourselves to be supportive humans. I always just tell others and make sure it's my mantra of just the golden rule, be someone's rainbow, because you just never know what storm they're going through. And I think at this point, as far as the conversation of mental health, I think that we just need to respect the fact that we're all on our own healing journey. Whether we talk about it or not, people's battles could be very internal, and some other people's battles or journeys are very external. There was a time in my life where I couldn't share anything with anyone. And the times where I became vocal about it, I heard very opposing views. It was, why is she talking so much about her experience and depression?
But what made you open up at that time? Because you said you were, closed off, but what made you open up?
Therapy.
Therapy, okay.
Finding a safe space, which I highly recommend to anyone that's in a place of trauma or trying to crawl out of their trauma or just beginning their healing journey. I will never forget my first therapy session with my now ex, and it was the first time that someone had validated my words, my feelings. It made me feel less crazy. I was like, oh my gosh, someone is hearing me. I'd never put myself in a vulnerable enough place to want to speak in front of a professional. And I think because, of our upbringing or Asian American background, I was very frowned upon. People think that there's something wrong with you when, you're really just doing your best to get yourself help. And so when I was finally able to verbalize and express where I was in my life, or where I was as far as my mental health, you really do, it's tough, but you really see opposing sides as to how people feel about it. And hopefully we can start to break down the reaction that people get when speaking about any kind of topics when it comes to mental health.
Yes, thank you for being so vulnerable about that. I think it's really important because I think taking the first step and knowing that you need to get your emotions out. Who helped you to be like, okay, let's go to therapy? Like, what made you look into that? Like, what was the first thing?
For me, it was my safety.
Okay.
I did not feel comfortable with this person. I did not feel comfortable being in a room with this person without a professional present. So I think that, it was really my faith in God and giving me the signs. I was like, I need help, and that's, we'll circle back to this later, but I think that's why I do what I do, is because I want to be able to provide a safe space, because for me, I didn't have that. I didn't have anywhere to go to say, is this the right thing? Do I need to go to therapy? It was really me just following the signs from the universe as to taking the next step. And that's something that I always preach to others who might be in a very vulnerable situation, is you have to be brave enough to take that next step. Mm-hmm. And maybe brave enough to just look in the mirror and say, I'm not happy right now. I think that I need to start vocalizing. I think that I need to reach out to something or someone that can understand. And so thankfully, this person had agreed to want to do that. And like I said, if I didn't attend that very first session, I don't even know if I would be here today.
Mm. Oh, that's such an empowering story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I understand about like jumping into mental health therapy. It's very difficult. And in my community, it's actually deemed as like, a negative thing. Mm-hmm. I'm Vietnamese American, but when I tell my parents, I'm like, I need to go to therapy, and they're like, it's just emotions. We survived the war, the fall of Saigon in April 30th, 1975. So they look at us and they're like, they kind of look at me like, you're such a snowflake. You deal with your emotions, like you have bigger things to worry about. So I think cultural background definitely influenced that. So with that being said, I wanted to ask you, how has your cultural background and heritage influenced your approach to mental health advocacy and destigmatization?
Man, growing up Filipino, it's very interesting, because we are a culture that just wants to maintain positivity, happiness. Don't show anybody when you're struggling. You've got to be grateful for everything. But the reality is, life is full of ups and downs. And so it was really difficult to share any time that I was struggling. I mean, I would get in trouble for crying. It was like, why, we get punished. Like, why are you crying?
Girl, same.
Why are you crying? Why are you crying? So my whole life, I've never understood why I can't express my emotions. Mm-hmm. And so parts of my, overall mental development, I'm proud of the fact that with my Filipino background and upbringing, that they taught me to have a very strong mindset, but also at the same time, it didn't prepare me for when I actually had to express my emotions. And I still have a really hard time with that today, with my romantic relationships or even friendships, and being able to confront and set boundaries. And so, I do my best now, especially for other Filipino Americans, to talk about it. There's a lot of toxicity, there's a lot of stereotypes, but like you were saying, when it comes to our cultural backgrounds, it's all very conditional. My upbringing is not the same as my parents, so it's not apples to apples. Mm-hmm. It's very different.
Mm-hmm. It's like apples to oranges.
Yes, exactly.
But I wanted to make note that's really funny, because it's like my mom. Going back, I remember like she was like, "If you're crying, I'll give you something to cry about." I'll be like, "No," but she used to like make fun of me. She's like, "Oh, the bunny is gone. We have a bunny in our backyard, and it like escaped." And my mom was like, "Why are you crying?" And I was like, "You're joking, but I need to get my emotions out."
Yes.
So it's like I think building the emotions up, I think I would be more frustrated with myself. So it's like finding ways, good coping mechanisms to help me get my emotions out. But I am very aware, and I have a lot of discernment about, what I need to do to help myself. So thank you for sharing that. It's giving me like flashback about my mother.
Well, it's true. Then you try to navigate your emotions, and we don't really understand it until we come to a mature age, and we're like, how do I navigate my emotions? How do I address when I know my boundaries have been pushed to a limit, And so it takes a very long time to learn what is okay and what is not okay, and how are you going to like take the next steps to mature out of certain ways that you go about your emotions. Because, it came to a point where I was yelling because I was always containing my emotions, because I was always taught that we're not allowed to yell or cry or any of those things, but we're human. My blood boils and then I set off. And so
well, you know how to set off now with healthy techniques, of course, right?
Yes.
So how do you balance the pressure and the expectations of being a beauty queen? I mean, that's a really heavy title with taking care of your mental health.
I think a lot of pressure comes down to presentation and making sure that we are doing our best to show that we're maintaining the best version of ourselves. But the reality is we're all still, like I'm going to continue to say, we're all still on a healing journey, and I do my best, especially as a title holder, to be as authentic and as real as possible with my followers or the people that I'm able to engage with. I let people know when I'm feeling 5 out of 10. And for people to understand that we have amazing days, and the days that we feel good and attack, reward yourself. You should be able to celebrate all of your wins, no matter how small they are or no matter how big you are. But also, it's okay to really talk about your low days too. It's really okay to talk about your dark days. And so I just do my best to make everybody feel okay. And that's always been one of my biggest things. I want to provide a safe space, whether that's for my closest friends and loved ones or complete strangers. And so I hope, and that continues to resonate with people.
So Christy, tell me, how do you train the girls behind the scene for their pageant?
I absolutely love coaching, girl. It is like my favorite job of all my jobs. So as a coach and consultant, I do all the above. So I've been able to host workshops where I've had workshops as small as 6 girls up to 25. I do things online as well, Zoom coaching, one-on-one, or even in small groups if we're talking about a certain topic, let's say interview skills. But I really do my best to curate a training package for that individual client. So let's say they want more training in public speaking, or they would rather, work on their modeling routines. We do that. But, for me, the big thing when it comes to competition is overall mindset. And so that's why I love that I'm here with you to talk about mental health, because your mindset going into this is gonna be your biggest tool. And, I think that sometimes the misconceptions of pageantry is people think that it's very, very competitive, or girls can be, not very nice. But I'm very lucky that for a lot of women that I've worked with, it's really about their personal development and growth. And for some of the girls who are a little bit newer to the pageant world, I try to focus on self-discovery and the path to really figuring out what their purpose is, what are their biggest goals. And, I have clients as young as 5 years old to women as grown as grandmas in their 50s and 60s, and it's all the same. The most interesting part is that when it comes to the interview room, we have to know ourselves. And so I always start with journaling, asking yourselves the really tough questions. What brings me joy? What makes me sad? What are things that I wish I could change in my community? What are some things I could change about myself? What are some things about my upbringing that I appreciate? What are some things I wish I could do to fix my relationships with my parents, so you've got to give the good, the bad, and the ugly. And that is how you're going to hone in on your greatest internal powers. So I think that is always my foundation when it comes to training my girls, because without a strong and positive mindset, what do you have to fall back on, right? And it's scary. You're really competing against other girls, what we think is going to be the standard of beauty, standing in front of strangers who have no idea who you are. So the best thing you can do is go out there and be yourself and be the most authentic, best version of yourself. And that takes a lot of practice and digging and feeling confident. And I treat it as any other sport. I always compare it to Kobe Bryant. You got to wake up at 4:30 a.m. and shoot those free throws so that the second that you are under pressure on that stage, you know exactly what to fall back to. You go back to your muscle memory. You know your routine. You know your facial expressions. You know what you're going to say when someone asks you around the realm of whatever topic it is, because you prepared for that moment.
It's definitely a sport, and I think people are like, oh, what do you do? Just wear an evening dress. No, you have to wear like the stiletto heels, and you have rehearsal, and you have to practice, and you have the opening number for the dance part. So do you have any advice for newbies coming into pageantry world? Like, it's a whole new world, but what if they don't have supportive friends and family? What do you advise for them to do?
What I tell girls who are new to pageantry is, to get ready for an amazing growth experience. You never even expect the self-discovery that you get out of the experience, and you don't even expect the amount of friends that you make. I know that for me, when I first jumped into pageants, I had no idea that I was going to be surrounding myself with women who were just as like-minded, who were ambitious, who had huge goals. And I was like, wow, these are my people. Where have you guys been my whole life? And so for newbies, I don't think that they expect that. And if pageantry is something that you're just trying out, but you may not feel like you have a lot of support from your family or friends, or they might think, what are you doing a silly pageant? This is about you. This is your journey. Whether it's a healing journey or a challenge or a test for yourself, this is your time to shine, and you should be so proud of yourself for even just taking the next step and being brave enough to want something like this. And one thing I tell girls is, when you join a pageant, the odds are stacked against you. You're competing against 20 women. Guess who's walking away with a crown? One person. But you better believe that for you to sign up and put yourself through this, that is bigger than anybody in the audience can ever say. So regardless, you should be so proud of yourself from the very start, and celebrate all those wins along the way. Celebrate the challenges that you go through and be like, oh man, I would have never been able to get on stage and introduce myself or be able to answer a question on stage, and now you can say you can. And there's so much positive outcomes that come from it that nobody really expects.
What was your philanthropy when you joined this pageant?
My platform has always been and standing for the safety of women and children. As a domestic violence survivor, which is where I started in my pageantry journey, I felt it was very important to be a voice for maybe those who have not yet found the help or assistance that they needed while experiencing their abuse. I think it became more impactful being of Asian descent. I started to get a lot more women, that were just minorities, reaching out and saying thank you so much for sharing your story, because you realize how much more common abuse is, and really educating people the different types of abuse, emotional, verbal, financial abuse, until it gets to physical abuse. And even now today in my profession as a producer, I'm working on a lot of stories that are based on domestic violence. So I still feel very strongly about where I stand as far as women's safety. I've also been a spokesperson and social media strategist for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. and just have done my best to be an advocate for keeping women and children safe, to do our best to decrease numbers in human trafficking. And it's a very uncomfortable, dark topic to a lot of people, but just like anything, if we don't talk about it, how will there ever be a solution? How will anybody ever care about anything if it's not said, whether it's uncomfortable or not? And so today, as Ms. Universe in October being Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I really want to start some campaigns. I'm working with the Shade Tree, which is a nonprofit organization that is helping women in transition from homelessness, coming from a domestic abuse background. And that's what I've continued to do as a title holder. I've always done my best to give back to shelters and or nonprofits that are doing what they can for people in transition.
Oh, so where can we find more information about that organization?
You can hit up there. I will post it on my social media. They don't have a big presence. And so that's something that I really want to help them with. Las Vegas is a very troubled place for women and children. And so doing work here in Southern California, I've been able to work with some incredible organizations, and I want to continue to spread that workforce and that community in Vegas as well with some of the title holders that I work with out there.
Thank you for sharing that. Do you have any other future goals and aspirations in terms of mental health advocacy and awareness within the AAPI community and beyond? I know you're very booked and busy.
Yeah.
So, but are there any other goals that you want to achieve?
Yes, of course. I think with that same platform of raising awareness to domestic violence for those who are survivors, it comes with a lot. The healing journey that we've been talking about, the journey back to self-discovery, requires, a lot of self-awareness in what are your triggers. We deal with a lot of PTSD, and I think that really is across the board for anyone and everyone, whether you have experienced certain levels of abuse. It might just be your upbringing in general. But as far as mental health goes, I would love to continue to create a safe space for women of Asian descent to be able to have an open forum so that we can freely talk about whatever challenges that we're going through. With my title holders, we did Mental Health Mondays where, we jumped on to live Instagrams and just talked about different topics. And so I would love to, as far as goals go, for this upcoming pageant, and maybe I can be making this announcement here with you now, but I would love to benefit this organization for my upcoming pageant in 2024, as well as NAMI, the National Alliance for Mental Health, because this is something that it's just ongoing. The healing journey in our mental health is ongoing. Whether you are clinically depressed or have a clinical illness, our bodies are like an entire unit. If we're not taking care of our physical health, then that's going to affect our mental health. And if we're not talking enough about what is affecting our mental health, then how are we going to be able to find these discoveries to be able to maintain our best version of what mental health can be? Just because, everything is roller coaster. And I always talk about our bodies as like a bicycle. If we're not utilizing everything we can as far as holistic approaches, physical fitness, finding your ways of meditation, finding your community, finding your safe space, then our journey to mental health and being in a better place gets farther and farther away. So I'd love to be able to create something where we can continue to keep this conversation going.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. So before I ask you a very strong question, I wanted to ask anything funny that happened during your competition, anything, in any pageants that you've competed in.
Funny? Oh my gosh. Okay, well, in this pageant, everything that could go wrong went wrong.
Okay.
And so I never thought that I was going to be crowned. Because for me, again, speaking of mental health, it was the biggest mental challenge for me, which it's funny because that's my biggest thing that I preach with my girls is mindset, mindset, mindset. Stay in the positive mindset. I was wrecked. It was a mess when it came to this competition. So, one, I totally missed the call time and I showed up late. I am such a stickler of being on time, and I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was like, oh man, I already failed. Like these people might think that I'm already a hot mess. Like, I blew it. I'm done. So then from there, I'm like, okay, Christy, bounce back. It's okay. You can redeem yourself. You got this. You still got a whole week to go. I go through my swimsuit competition. My strap breaks in the middle of it. So I'm in the middle of modeling. I go for a pose and I'm like, I'm pretty sure my shoe just broke. All right, gotta keep going. Let's do it. Can't show it on my face. The show must go on. And so, of course, after that, I'm like, dang, I can't believe that happened. So that got to my head again as well.
It's a mental game. It's a mental resiliency.
It's a huge mental resilience game. But again, had to bounce back and be like, it's okay. No one knew that but me. During this competition, I was also juggling my full-time job. Thankfully, I work remotely in production, but at the same time, I had crazy deadlines. I had meetings. I wasn't able to really relax and enjoy myself. I had to be on 100% as far as a performer and being able to win my dream title of Miss Universe. But I also had to make sure that I was delivering and not falling short of my professional expectations. So it was a lot to deal with in my head. I was very stressed. But again, I had to revert to, okay, Christy, you've got to manage the stress the way that you would tell one of your clients. Go back to gratitude. Be so thankful that you have this opportunity to be here. Leave it up to God and the universe at this point because you've already put yourself through enough in your head. Mm-hmm. And even during evening gown, a part of my cape like fell off again, and it threw me off during my performance.
So there's a wardrobe malfunction theme throughout this whole pageant.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what was it? How does it feel when they called your name and you're the winner? So how did that feel? Were you like, oh my goodness, of course?
No, unbelievable. It felt so unbelievable because I'm telling you, Anne, I thought I blew it from the very start. And so I hope that my story, when I'm able to tell other people this story, and the takeaway is like, you can't give up, you can't give up. You could just never ever give up. Even when your brain is already telling you, it's gone, it's done, just let it go. Mm-hmm. You know, I still did have that belief in me. I was like, all right, at this point, I just gotta keep giving it my very best and leave it up to God.
But that also shows like your professionalism. So that includes in the plus points.
Well, and again, everything always just coming down to mental health. I had to take a step back and evaluate the thoughts that were coming into my head, the words I was telling myself, and being like, no, I deserve better than to talk to myself like this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I shouldn't be clouding my brain with these negative thoughts. And that's exactly what mental health does. Once our inner critic or once that voice in our head begins to take over with negativity, if you don't recognize it, stop it, feed yourself endorphins in the way that you know to deal with coping mechanisms, mm-hmm. then it's really easy to get stuck there. And girl, I was stuck there. I really was.
But did it show on your face? Probably not. Obviously, you were the winner.
Well, I will say this, support is everything. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, I was there with one of my very good friends. And to be able to have a support system and a safe space at all times is very important. So I was able to bounce back, feedback and things throughout the week. So in that moment, going back to your question, in that moment of getting crowned, it felt like it really didn't feel real at all. And it still doesn't feel real that I have to like show up and put on a sash and a crown and be able to talk about it. And now I can be able to share like,
you survived.
This doesn't come just like, boop, it's yours ever. Mm-hmm. Just like anything in life. It's really, it's not the destination. It is the journey. It's always about the journey.
Yes, healing is always going to be a process. It's a lifelong process for sure. And thank you so much for coming here today. And just before we ask you the last question here, we want to thank Synergy Health Recovery for having the studio, and they are sponsoring for AAMI and Asian Media Network. We're so happy to be able to film in this beautiful luxury building and having good lightings and everything for Christy. Lastly, what advice would you give individuals who may be struggling with their mental health but are hesitant to seek help or speak out due to cultural or societal pressure? I know you mentioned a little bit before.
Man, I can relate to that so much. The advice I'm going to give you, my simple advice is be brave. I believe in you. You're never alone. I promise you're never alone. And the moment that you take that step of bravery, you are going to be so proud of yourself, because that is going to be the first step to a new you, and you deserve it. I don't know what, regardless, let me start from that. Regardless of whatever it is that you're going through, if you have the thought that you want and or need help, that means that is the universe telling you that it is time to seek help or to begin your recovery, and you deserve that, because we only live once. And I tell people all the time, we know how quickly life goes. In a blink of an eye, you can be in a completely different space. But just know that create a pathway for yourself, and nobody else is going to be able to stop you after you take that first step. And I hope that you find your safe space, you find your safe people. For me, it was all about finding that safe place for myself, whether that was a physical place, maybe it's going to the beach and staring out at the waves, finding that safe person. Maybe this is your cousin that lives in a completely different country, or maybe it's a therapist, and finding that safe internal place. Maybe it's a memory that you can go back to as a child and say, I felt the most safe and best when I was playing soccer with my dad growing up. As long as you can try to revert to those three places and find what those three places are, I promise that this journey is going to get easier.
Oh, thank you. I can tell you're getting a little emotional, and thank you so much for putting all the time and effort to come here. So where can our viewers find you on social media? What's the next thing you're doing? Because you're all over the place.
The easiest place to find me is on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at Christy-Anne Lopez. That's spelled CHRISTYANNE LOPEZ. From there, you'll see my bio. There's a bunch of links that can connect you to everything I'm excited to share. I am most excited to announce that I am opening up registration for my pageant, the Regency International West Coast Pageant, open to girls as young as ages 4 all the way to 55 and up. So I'm excited to have girls come into this awesome program.
Again, Christy, thank you so much for coming in today. And to our viewers, stay informed, stay engaged, and take care of your mental well-being. Let's cheers.
Cheers. Thank you for having me.